Hello, everyone. Welcome to Module 5 of our course. And your Module 5 is a bit complicated and information overload. So, allow me to give you some things or just something that would simplify your Module 5. Okay, so previously, we had talked about carbohydrates, which is our second macronutrient. Okay, because first we already discussed about water and then carbohydrates. So, um, let me share you my screen first. Let's have a review or recap on what we had studied about. Okay, so my screen is there already. All right. Okay, so we had talked about cellular respiration. Wherein glucose is being broken down into products. Okay, so there are two types of cellular respiration, the aerobic and the anaerobic. See, so we already learned that for aerobic respiration makes use of oxygen, while the anaerobic doesn't make use of the oxygen. So glucose is being burned by oxygen and the products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP. On the other hand, for anaerobic respiration, no oxygen is used, so glucose gives us lactic acid as well as energy, of course, in the form of ATP. So this is the reason why when we do our exercise or when we do our extraneous exercises, when we run, when we jog and work out, we feel soreness in our muscles because we lack oxygen supply during those extraneous exercises. So it became lactic acid. The lactic acid causes the soreness in our muscles. Okay. So for cellular respiration, I had given you this illustration also, wherein glucose will undergo glycolysis. Okay, so for aerobic, there will be a total of 36 to 38 ATPs. And for the anaerobic, wherein oxygen is not present, there will be a total of 2 ATPs. Okay, so it is 36 because two ATPs are used within the process here. All right, so first glycolysis and then um, it will undergo to preparatory steps wherein the glucose molecule will turn into pyruvate and then it will enter the Krebs cycle, and after the Krebs cycle in the electron transport chain, wherein in the electron transport chain there will be a total of 34 ATPs. Okay, on the other hand, after glycolysis, it will turn into lactic acid or alcohol. Okay, so there are two products, either lactic acid for animal cells, and alcohol for plant cells. Okay, so let's further discuss this route here. We are going to discuss the carbohydrate metabolism. Okay, so I will just simplify it by these two illustrations that I'm going to present to you. Okay, so carbohydrate, when we are not going to use them as what we had talked about from the previous recording, that it will be temporarily stored as glycogen. Okay, so if glucose is not used, it will be temporarily stored as glycogen, and we call that process as glycogenesis. Okay, so meaning we are turning glucose, storing it into glycogen. Now, if we do not eat, okay, we do not die right away because we still have stored energy in our body in the form of glycogen, and that glycogen will fuel us up again. It will undergo the process called glycogenolysis, wherein it will turn back into glucose. All right, is that understood? So, if we eat, and if we do not do work, glucose through the process of glycogenesis will turn into glycogen. Okay, that's now the build that we have in our tummy. Okay, now, if we do not eat, we are very busy with our work. or we are depressed, we don't want to eat. Okay, but still we are alive because the glycogen that is stored in our body will turn back into glucose in the process called glycogenolysis. Okay, now the glycogen will further be broken down into pyruvate molecules. Okay, and that is the process called glycolysis. All right, so we already discussed that the metabolism or the digestion of carbohydrates starts in our mouth, wherein the glucose turned into or it is broken down into glucose rather. Okay, the carbohydrate that we eat, that is of course polysaccharide, it will be broken down into glucose in our mouth by the aid of ptyalin or salivary amylase. Okay. So then glucose will of course from the mouth, then the food that we eat will go to the stomach and it will be ground there. Okay, after grinding in the stomach, it will go to the small intestine wherein absorption of nutrients takes place there. All right, so glucose turns into pyruvate by the process called glycolysis. And this pyruvate, when not in use, will turn back into glucose, as what we had discussed earlier with regards to glucose and glycogen. And that process is called gluconeogenesis. All right, so there are four processes already. Just be just be familiar with those processes. Okay, now the pyruvate will then be broken down again into acetyl coenzyme A, okay? And it will undergo the citric acid cycle or Krebs cycle and go to the electron transport chain. And you now have your products for the cellular respiration, which are carbon dioxide, water, and ATP. Now, let us go to the details of the citric acid cycle and the electron transport chain, and where does the carbon dioxide production and the water production and the ATP production actually happens? Okay, so I will give you another illustration wherein we have them in details. Okay, so again, we have our glucose. In transforming glucose into pyruvate molecules, one glucose molecule gives us two pyruvate molecules. Okay, so four ATPs is being produced while two is being used. So there will be a total of two ATPs. Okay, 4 minus 2, you have 2. And active transport rather of NADH from cytoplasm into mitochondria, the 2 NADH here, needs two ATPs. Okay, now the pyruvate molecule will then be um what do you call this, transformed into acetyl coenzyme A with the production of carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is being released in the process. And the acetyl coenzyme A goes into the Krebs cycle. And in the Krebs cycle, you have two ATPs that are being produced. Carbon dioxide again is released during the Krebs cycle. And lastly, in the electron transport chain, this is now where 34 ATPs are being released. Okay, so it is in the electron transport chain that the number of ATPs are released, or the energy is being released in that process, okay, as well as water is also released. Okay, so the carbon dioxide is released during the transformation of pyruvate to acetyl coenzyme A, as well as in the Krebs cycle, and water as well as the energy, more of the energy is being released during the electron transport chain. So, as a summary, in glycolysis, there will be two ATPs in the Krebs cycle, two ATPs, and the electron transport chain, 34 ATPs. So that makes 36 ATPs, 38 rather, but you are using 2. Okay? Don't forget you use 2 for the NADH transport. All right, so 38 minus 2, you get a total of 36 ATPs per glucose molecule. Okay, so in your activity for your module 5, you are going to make your own graphic organizer that summarizes the cellular respiration. You have to indicate the number of ATPs, the number of FADH2 and NADH. It is being discussed. FADH2 and NADH are being discussed in your module. And I will also be giving you another video making all those information in your module simpler. Okay. The number of this that will be formed after the process if 4 molecules of glucose enter the process. Okay, take note, you are given 4 molecules of glucose. So you are going to indicate the number of ATPs, FADH2, and NADH. Okay, so just simply create your own graphic organizer. Okay, just like this one, but not really like this. Okay, it will be your own work. Okay, and indicate the number of ATPs, NADH, and FADH2. Okay, anyway, they are here in this example. Okay, so the NADH and the FADH2, the number as well as the ATPs. Okay, so take note, it is for 4 glucose molecules. All right, so if you have questions, you may message me on Canvas and kindly work on your module each week before our discussion hour so you can give me your questions during that hour. Okay, so by the time Sunday comes, it's the due date of the module, you will be very confident that your answers are correct. Okay, so thank you very much for watching and see you in our next recording.